like when you're told like everything about you is wrong, like you take a step right, you're wrong. You take a step left, you're wrong. Like everything you try, like there was nothing I did that was celebrated or encouraged. Everything I did was berated or put down, and like every avenue that I tried to explore was just shut down in a way because I didn't fit the norm. I didn't fit society. I wasn't like, this good little Indian girl that, wanted to wear dresses and have long hair. And I didn't fit that mold. And because I didn't fit the mold back then, people didn't know what to do with me other than shove me into that mold and make me fit into this thing that I wasn't. And
Yeah.
I didn't have the words, they didn't have the words of what that conversation meant. And so I just felt like I was constantly just hitting, this cage that I was in, not even knowing if I broke that or stepped out, who would I be? I was like, if I can't be me, then who else can I be?
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become the best possible versions of themselves and to strive for overall health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, all of the healths, without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who've been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time somebody shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. So, listeners, we are talking about backgrounds today. And Nerissa is a specialist. They specialize in backgrounds. I'm so sorry. It's been a long day.
I'm like,
So
background,
tell me, how
like
did you
my
get into
story? Like, what are we talking about? Okay, let's
how
go.
did you get into the background business?
Well, there was a time when I was at the foreground, and
Oh my
and then
God. Can I make a blooper reel?
I was like, oh, this
Oh,
looks cool. And I'm like, what space is this? And I'm like, is this the background? They're like, nah, that's just the midground. And
that's
I'm
the
like, oh, there's another layer. And then we ended up in the
oh,
background.
so funny. Yes, I'm definitely making a blooper reel with this one. Um, yeah, I'm with Nerissa Trindade, not Trinidad, Trindade. And I met them at one of my 5-day horse things that I keep going back to because I can't get enough of them. And I actually got to stare into their soul for 5 minutes, and it was amazing. Tell me your thoughts on that.
What do you want me to share my thoughts on when you looked into my soul?
Yeah, like how was that for
Yeah.
you? And people are probably going, what the fuck are they talking about?
Well, initially it was like, wait, what? What do we have to do here? You're gonna like, we're just gonna stare at each other for like 5 minutes and it'd be like super uncomfortable because that's generally what sometimes it feels like staring at a random unknown person, even though we'd been kind of on a journey for 4 days. We didn't really know much about each other at that point. But when we got into the Zoom room, it just felt super easy. Like, I don't know, we just connected in a way that in that silence, and it didn't feel awkward, it didn't feel weird in any way. It just was like, oh, there's just this beautiful moment where we don't have to talk and we can just look into each other's soul and whatever and take whatever we need to out of that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there was just this beautiful, like, just peaceful connection. Like, it was funny, like I think it was just lighthearted, like it wasn't too intense or anything. It just felt
Yeah,
good.
it was comfortable.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah. So thank you for that. And then in all seriousness, can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and why you think you are who you are?
All right. Well, I'm Nerissa Trindade. I am a transformational speaker, coach, and author, and facilitator. I help people stand, stay, and soar in their truth. I help them unlock all of who they are and show up as their truest versions of what they believe that is in the world. And then through that, help other people to create safe spaces and impact and transform more lives. And I help people powerfully share their story, raise diverse voices, and really impact lives through that as well. And the reason I do what I do and the reason I am who I am is because of, I guess, everything that I've been through. You know, there's this saying where they say life is happening for you and not to you. And there are many moments when we don't even realize that life is actually happening for us. But I think in a beautiful way, everything that has happened in my life, even all of the bad moments, all of the horrific times, the hard times, the times when I thought I wouldn't even make it or I wouldn't even be here, was all kind of guiding me and leading me to this point. And yeah, we can go as far into that background as you'd like to. But yeah, I think every moment has led me to where I am today.
What do you think was maybe one that, I mean, I know we're all full of stories, but what do you think is something that you either went through or something that happened to you where you maybe felt, as you were saying earlier, like hopeless or like you weren't going to make it, and then you just had like a mind shift? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think probably the first 30 years of my life, that was it. And I know you say a moment, and there were so many moments in those first 30 years of my life that brought me to that moment when I turned 30. And I think for the first 30 years of my life, every aspect, everywhere that I looked, it was everybody just telling me not to be who I am in some way, shape, or form. I grew up in India back in the 1980s, and growing up, I was always perceived as someone different. I think I always knew there was something different about me, but I didn't have the words to describe what was different about me. And, you know, I very early on, I got drilled into me that I was worthless, that I was useless, that I would never make anything, never be anything. And this is drilling that into like a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 10-year-old. So that just became my narrative. It became what I grew up with, thinking that I'm not worth anything, I'll never be anything, never become anything. And I became that narrative, and that's how I showed up in all areas of my life. And I was bullied in school, I was bullied in college, and because home life was the way it was, I couldn't come back and tell anybody at home that I was being bullied, but I couldn't tell anybody at school what was happening at home. So it just felt like both spaces where a child should feel safe or feel like they can go into and be who they are, both spaces of that were completely shut down for me, and I couldn't be me in either, and I didn't know who being me was because I was just told not to be. So that was kind of the background of me growing up, which then just continued on and moved into college. I moved from India to Australia, and it continued. And I think when I moved, I think moving to Australia was a tiny pivot as well, because I just hit rock bottom there, because I failed in school, I failed in life, I failed in relationships, I failed at work, like everywhere I went, it was just knocking the door of failure, and doors just being shut, and me being told that I didn't belong, that I wasn't worth anything the way I was, that I'd never have any friends, that I'd never make anything or do anything. And I think I hit I hit a level of rock bottom at that point, and I was like, where do I go from here? So the only way out was a one-way plane ticket to Australia. And at that time, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know why I was getting here. It was just buy a ticket and get out for a potentially, possibly better, different life of some way, shape, or form. And when I moved here for 8 years, it was just that. It was just really just discovering who I was, finding my feet here, finding laying a kind of foundation on which I could then reshape and redesign and recreate my future. And when that space started to feel a bit safe, when it felt like I could, just tap it a little bit and explore a little bit, it allowed me to explore my identity. It allowed me to go down paths that probably I hadn't gone down before, to just test and play and learn a bit more about who Nerissa was, who Nerissa is, and who Nerissa, at that point, I didn't even know who Nerissa can be. It was just who Nerissa was through all of this unlayering, taking off all these layers of blame and shame and guilt and, other people's narratives and just the weight of society and generations and traditions and religions that I'd carried for 30 years. And that kind of 5 to 8 year journey before I turned 30 was just a journey of just self-discovery, of really understanding and unpacking in some way, shape, or form. At that time, I didn't have a coach. I wasn't into personal development. It was just me unpacking me and figuring out who I am in this world that has told me not to be. And I think when I got to the point of turning 30, for me, that was a now and never moment. I knew I'd lived so much of my life not being me. And it got me to the point where I was like, either I come out and say, this is who I am, and potentially lose everybody on the other side, or I die to a version that I'm not. And that for me was that moment that you're talking about, where I just had to leap. I just had to make a decision and say, that is it. And I was like, if I show up as all of who I am and no one else accepts me, at least I know that I'm being true to me. And at least I can find peace in that and hold space for me. And I think through that journey of self-discovery, that's all that I'd got to, was that, this is who I am. And I think now, having been in transformation for so many years and looking back, that was just the tiny scratching of the surface, because there was so much more to go on. But it was first like just being able to just knock that door down and go, hey, you know what, world, this is me. And yeah, that was the moment.
That's beautiful. I can't imagine what it's like your whole life being told not to be yourself, but then also not having the ability to explore who you even are. So they're telling you not to be you, and you're like, I don't even know what that means. So what am I supposed to not be?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like when you're told like everything about you is wrong, like you take a step right, you're wrong. You take a step left, you're wrong. Like everything you try, like there was nothing I did that was celebrated or encouraged. Everything I did was berated or, put down. And like every avenue that I tried to explore was just shut down in a way, because I didn't fit the norm. I didn't fit society. I wasn't like, this good little Indian girl that, wanted to wear dresses and have long hair. And I didn't fit that mold. And because I didn't fit the mold back then, people didn't know what to do with me other than shove me into that mold and make me fit into this thing that I wasn't. And I didn't have the words. They didn't have the words of what that conversation meant. And so I just felt like I was constantly just hitting, this cage that I was in. But not even, to your point, not even knowing if I broke that or stepped out, who would I be?
Yeah.
Because how do you know if everything about you is said that everything about you is wrong, and you can't be, like, I was like, if I can't be me, then who else can I be? But who is me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you think it was more powerful that you took that journey on your own without a coach? Because you said you weren't even into personal development yet, right?
Right. I mean, I wish I'd had someone then. Like, I think now, knowing the benefit of, coaching and just community even.
Yeah.
Like it's sometimes it's coaching, sometimes it's community, sometimes it's just one other person going, hey, you know what, I get this. I think that journey was very lonely and very dark. And, I went down places that I probably didn't want to go down. And I'm just really, really lucky. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful every day that I'm still here, because, those paths could have taken me down places that I probably wouldn't be here, in all honesty. So I'm just really grateful and thankful that I made it. That
me too.
someone above, over, somewhere was looking out for me, and I'm still here. But it would have been nice to have someone, that I could talk to or bounce stuff off, or that could guide or even like mentor or coach through that.
Yeah. I love also that I love that you were talking about deciding to be you even though you knew you were going to lose people. Because that's it's so hard for people to do that because we care so much about what other people think about us. And when we get to a place where we're like, okay, I care enough that I lose you, but I care more for me, and
Yeah.
I care enough about me to say fuck them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I think, it's really interesting because you get to a point where you're like, it's now or never, and there's almost a point where there's so much to lose, but there's also nothing to lose, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm like, well, all of these people don't get me anyway.
Yeah.
They don't know who I am. So even if I was to step out and lose everybody, yes, it would be the most painful thing ever because I would lose everyone that I'm closest to, but also they don't really know me anyway.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're like, what am I losing, or am I losing, or am I gaining? Like, it's
Yeah.
all these internal questions that run through.
Yeah. It's like you're losing external things to gain the internal things.
Yeah, yeah.
Stuff.
No one's ever said it like that, but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Ugh, good stuff.
Mm.
So, how long have you been in Australia now?
Well, this year we'll make it 20 years.
Wow.
I've been in Australia. Yeah,
That's
time
awesome.
flies.
That's I know. That's an understatement.
Very true.
And what kind of things have happened in those 20 years other than finding yourself and being your best you?
Yeah, I think so much has happened. I often say that I kind of grew up here, um, because it was, if you use that kind of caterpillar butterfly analogy, I think that kind of those 8 years up to 30 was the cocoon that I was in. Like I was the caterpillar
Mhm.
before, just kind of chomping along, not knowing really what I was doing or where I was going in life, was just
Yeah.
taking me no purpose, no direction. And then those kind of 8 years was a very long cocoon, or chrysalis. And then I think Australia allowed me to slowly spread my wings and test the ground, and then slowly even just learn how to fly. And
Mm.
I think what was really good here was that even though a lot of my reputation carried over, coming in, because I had some family here, and friends, and some people knew the past story. So a bit of that reputation continued. But as I was creating life here, it was almost like I had a blank slate.
Mhm.
I had a clean canvas, and I could just create and be who I wanted. And I think that distinction of people not knowing the past was really liberating in a way, because I didn't have to be that person that they thought I was. And I could just show up as who I was creating and becoming or unbecoming in that process.
Yeah.
I think over the 20 years, I've seen my career take off in a way that I didn't dream possible. I've seen doors open for me that I didn't think possible. Today I speak and I coach, and I was somebody who, as a kid, was terrified, absolutely terrified of public speaking. Like you couldn't pay me $1 million even to be doing this with you right now.
Mm.
So when I think about what I do right now, it is just completely unrecognizable from what life used to be. And I think
Yeah.
the last 20 years here, and like jumping into this space of personal development and transformation, has just allowed me to go so much deeper, even in my own. And I think, like when we go deeper in our own, like the more capacity we build, the more we're able to hold for other people. And I think that's allowed me to have the interactions I've had, to create safe spaces for other people, to allow others to feel safe, to be
Mhm.
all of who they are. And that
Yeah.
allows them to find their voice and share their story, and explore their truth. And I think that, to me, is like the most powerful thing that's kind of shifted and changed for me in the last 20 years.
I love that. And it's given you the ability to stare at a complete stranger for 5 minutes straight.
Right, exactly. Deep into someone's soul for 5 minutes. Correct.
Yeah. I love that too, because I think being our authentic selves does exactly what you were saying. Like, it allows other people to be their authentic selves. Like,
Right.
listeners, when you're following people on social media, do you follow the imperfect people, or do you follow the people that are completely polished and that you can't relate to? Because they're
Right.
not really polished. It's all a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
So,
so interesting that you say that, because recently, like, I've been talking to a few people that have reached out to me, like, whether to coach or have a conversation or whatever. And someone was like following me for 2 years, and then they reached out, and someone's just been recently following me and reached out, and it's all kind of in that range. But you're right, the thing they say that resonates with them is the authenticity and the realness and the rawness. And it's just
yeah.
like, you're not fake. Like, there's no bullshit. Like, it's just who we see is who we get. And back to you, and that's, I think, like what I love about the content you put out as well, and how you show up on social media is kind of like breaking the kind of the influencer game, with all the screens and the shades and the facades, and it's just going, hey, this is life, and this is how we do it here, and this is how it is. And I
Yeah.
think people are craving that level of just realness and rawness now.
Yeah. And it's so much easier too. Like you're not constantly thinking of, how am I going to please these other people in a polished way? I'm just like, I'm going to be me. And I tell people lately, like, what you see on my social media is what you get in person. Like, I show up
Right.
with no eyebrows sometimes in my gym working out, and, because that's part of me. That's part of my routine. And yeah, and I'm a total goofball nerd, and I'm weird, and I tell myself jokes, and I laugh at them when nobody else does, and I don't care.
I'm laughing with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Always. You have a friend on this side of the world laughing with you. From the future, when no one else is awake, I'm
Oh
awake
yeah.
laughing with you.
Oh yeah. What time is it there?
It's 8:14 a.m. on Thursday.
Wow. It is 3:14 p.m. on Wednesday. So
Right. From the
listeners,
future.
they're in the future.
It's looking good. It's looking good.
Yeah. So, what else can I ask you? I personally don't like having a preset list of questions because it's more
I love it.
organic and flowy, unlike a
Yeah.
dress that I wouldn't wear. I don't know why I said that.
Oh, that's
Uh,
funny. Oh my God. So many images in my head.
um, I had is it a coaching session or was I just talking to somebody? Maybe it was a coaching session. Oh, it was last week. I went to ECCP and they did timeline therapy.
Right.
And
I just did timeline therapy this morning.
nice. For some reason, like when I'm being taken through timeline therapy, there's like the event where the emotion appeared. Whenever I go backwards, it's always my 6th birthday party. And what I pointed out, and this will make sense when I say this, I was in a pink dress. So, like, it wasn't just pink, it was a dress. And, like,
Yeah.
y'all know, like, my listeners have seen my closet. It's all black.
Right.
So, yeah, I just thought that was interesting. It's always my 6th birthday party. And, watching The Little Mermaid on repeat.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so interesting. It's so interesting how um the clothes we wear and how we style ourselves and how we show up speaks so much, like, it speaks volumes of who we are. And when, like, I know it's all about like internal and who we are on the inside, but there's also an element of how the external aligns with the internal, and how we get to take that internal out into the world and drive it around. And the colors that we wear and how we style ourselves and how we show up and how we walk and how we sit and how we stand says so much about who we are. And I completely get that, because like, for years, like, I wasn't allowed to dress the way I wanted to, and or have my hair the way I wanted to, even just a haircut. And that takes so much away from you. And the moment you're able to just put on, even before we started here, like, I changed my jumper because I was like, oh, I just feel more comfortable in this one. And I think, it gives you a level of comfort, it gives you a level of confidence, it gives you a level of identity and purpose, and just, exploring and expanding who you are on the inside in
Yeah.
a way that you can take it and showcase that to the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You find that too?
I jokingly tell people that I wear black because it's the color of my soul. I mean, okay, so the real reason is I love the rock star look, which is like why I still do the dark makeup. But in high school, I was like full goth, like eyeliner here, eyeliner down here. I
Yeah.
had like safety pins all over my pants, and I was just like full goth. And then I kind of toned it down, and I'm just like, I like the rock star look. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but
I
I
think
tell
it looks,
people,
I think you rock the rock star look.
thank you, thank you. Um, but like the original reasons I started wearing black was number one. Um, I'm gonna make a long story short. My grandma, who listeners know she was my biggest bully. She took me shopping one time and said, "You can buy anything you want." And I picked out a black dress. She wouldn't let me get it. And I was like, "Fine, I don't want anything."
Nothing else but
But
that.
yeah, I don't know how old I was, maybe 6 or 7. And she goes, "Little girls don't wear black." And so that was kind of in the back of my head. And the other reason is I grew up on a diet my whole life, and with the story of black is a slimming color. And so those two things mixed together kind of
Yeah. Messes with your head
shaped my black wardrobe. But now
and
it's
your black
because I
soul.
like it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, my closet's black, blue, and white. So I'm not very varied from that. Um, I absolutely love showing up in black, and yeah, it's either black, blue, or white. So it's not much difference in that. But yeah, I totally get why you go straight back to that party, or why that conversation with your grandmother picking out that dress is so relevant for you.
Yeah.
Completely get it. I remember when I came out for the first time, I got rid of like 15 pairs of heels, and I got rid of like half of my wardrobe because I'm like, I don't want to wear that. Like that's who
Yeah.
people say, what people say I should wear. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so interesting, like just the journey of, how you were talking about the going from that goth and then toning it down and finding you in that. I had a very similar experience of finding my identity. Like, what do I even like wearing? If I could wear what I wanted to wear, what would I wear?
Yeah.
And it's just been such an interesting journey to, just redefine my own style and how I want to show up and the clothes I want to wear and how I want to style what I wear, which is really interesting.
I love that. That's cool. I've never really talked with somebody else about style.
Yeah,
Because sometimes I joke and say, I don't know how to dress, but I mean, black matches black. So,
perfect. And,
yeah.
and apparently that's what they say. Like if you pick out one tone, then you're in style. So you're in
Yeah.
style all the time.
Yeah. So there you go. Look at
Pretty
me.
cool.
So, where can people find you?
They can find me on all the social platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, my website, all under Nerissa Trindade. It helps when you have a name that is not very common. But yeah,
Yep.
just Nerissa Trindade on all social media platforms.
Cool. I have one more question for you, and it's actually a serious question. So stop smiling and stop laughing. If you had one piece of advice that you could give to the world, what would it be?
Be all of who you truly can be, unapologetically. Just go out and shine your light no matter what anyone says to you. You can be, a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. So don't let anyone turn that light down of yours. Just go out, shine it bright, and just be all of who you are, unapologetic.
Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, Nerissa Trindade signing off. Until next time. Palaka.